What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, December 16th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 318. I'm in my new studio. We're going to find out how the volume of my voice is. We're going to work through some sound issues because I don't know if, there's nothing on my walls in this room. And it's a bigger room, and it's got a downstairs hall, so it might be echoey. So I'm going to learn in post what this is going to be like. I might have to throw a carpet in here for next episode. So like the off season with Riverside, we're going to be working through some sound issues. I'll get it fine-tuned. I got all the flooring down, Phil. I don't know if you can see behind me. It's all nice flooring. Don't
Looks
look over
good.
there. It's all storage right now, but I got the couch behind me. There'll be a TV behind me right here for all our graphics, but slowly, and I'm doing this all while I'm sick too, so I'm still not fully there. I'm better. Still not there, but yeah, it's been a long week. I'm glad we recorded a little bit earlier the day before because the Bandits playing Friday. I didn't even get to watch the game until Sunday. It's been nonstop working over here.
I do have some extra foam sound squares if you're interested. So
I might have to borrow them. It sounds fine to me, but
it's a smidge echoey, but it's not bad. It's
okay. I'm kind of in a little cubby right here too. So
it also doesn't help that you're sick, so this isn't a very. It's not a great test.
We're working with the lighting too. I'm a little bit darker. We're working with camera. I'm fine tuning it. I finished the.
Is this the new camera?
This is the new camera. So,
all right.
We'll see what happens. It's we're slowly upgrading, but fine tuning what's going on here. So we'll jump right into it because it's later because the Bills decided to. Have a 90-point game that went until like 8:30. I took a quick nap because my head's pounding also, and then I was late to recording, so we're just going to jump into it. I'm still coughing up a storm, so 1 second. See? Still sick. If you want to wish me well still, or let me know how bad the sound quality is, remember you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. You can check out our store on our link tree or on our social medias, or at the top of the website by hitting the shop tab. You can represent the BSC on the go and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. We're starting with Bandits v. Black Bears. And man, were our predictions wrong once again. I think we're going to have to start adjusting it because Buffalo is just blowing everybody's doors off right now. 18-7. McKay, career high. He was our BSC MVP on Sunday, if you follow that. 5 goals. Kluch had 3. Byrne, Bucky, Smith, and Frazier each had 2. Nanakoke and Weiss with 1. Vince, 34 of 41 saves. Orleman came in relief in the final 4:47. Went 3 for 3. Had 1 really nice save right at the end as well. Shots were 46-44 in favor of Buffalo. They got off the 0 mark. 3 for 4 on the power play. Ottawa was 2 for 5. And for faceoffs, Buffalo dominated 18-11. I wasn't positive that it was that high. And then I went back and looked at the box score and went, man, Farrell had a really nice game.
He did not to start. He looked horrible, and as I was watching and he got beat continually over and over and over, I was like, this is why you don't have a face-off only guy, because if he struggles during the game, then it pretty much makes that position useless. But he did turn it around. It is one thing I've noticed throughout his career so far. Obviously a very short one, but he seems to really make adjustments on what is happening, how the other face-off guy is approaching the face-offs. He seems to come in with his own game plan, which is fine. And then if that's not working, he does do a really good job switching it up and adjusting. He seems to be better as the game goes on, which is really great to see that he doesn't just stick to one style of face-off. And if that's not working, he's like, all right, well, this is all I know. This is what I'm going to stick with. It's good to see that as a true face-off only guy, he can adjust his own style to meet what the other opposing player is doing and come back and win. Like you said, 18-11, not bad, and especially really good with how it started.
Yeah, so we can start off with the offense. My God, Phil, it was unbelievable.
Face-off forwards and offense.
Everybody just got involved. Like every one of the forwards was goal scoring except for Scanlon, who did get in his first game. I didn't really notice him a ton, but it definitely showed that he was a little bit of like, I don't know, Bucky-esque a tad. I mean, I didn't really notice a ton. He had 3 assists in the game. All 3 were his first NLL career points, so congratulations to him. But you roll out 8 forwards in this one. Belter goes down to the practice squad. I'm assuming this is just a short-term stay because, I mean, I didn't see anything in his game that I didn't like in I know this is a side tangent, but I didn't really see anything in his game, the first one, to warrant a demotion. I wonder if this is just more, maybe something they saw versus Ottawa. I don't know. But I would assume that this is a very short-term stay on the practice squad. Don't know, really don't. But Nanticoke, 1, 3, and 4. Kluch, 3 goals. McKay, like we mentioned, he made... Is that egg on my face, Phil? Because I was just talking about McKay last week. He was, 1 for 12 shooting, and he's 5 for 5 this week. All 5 goals, career high, BSC MVP. Byrne, 2, 8, and 10, led the team in points. Scanlon, like I mentioned, 3 assists. Bucky, 2, 2, and 4. Smith, 2, 7, and 9. And then Frazier really gets involved after being more quiet in game 1, 2, 5, and 7. 5 assists for Chase Frazier is very unusual. He's usually pumping in 5 goals, having 2 assists. This one, he's doing a lot of the setup. I did mention that he might not be scoring a ton, 2 goals in 2 games, but he's doing all the little things right that I've noticed that might not have been Frazier's game in the past. It seems like the first 2 games, he's really setting those picks, picking up those loose balls, and pretty much getting everybody involved and setting those hard screens.
Yeah, I hate when our notes are pretty identical when we don't discuss them at all. Right. But I had the same thoughts on Frazier. He's getting a lot of assists, and his assists look good. They're not just simple, I'm the third guy in kind of assist, happened to be on the play. Like his pass to McKay behind the net for his dunk goal was a great lead up by him. He faked a shot, whipped it behind the net to give McKay that opportunity to get the dunk. He's looked good. He's very quiet right now, and even his typical Fraser mojo, you're not really seeing a lot of it yet, but what he is doing in his quiet state is being very productive. And like you said, a 2-5-7 game from him is pretty unique. You're used to seeing more of the Cloutier box line from Fraser, which is just the 3 goals, maybe 1 assist, and that's about it. So to see him get so many assists and not really have an issue with it, he's turning into a really good team player, and he looked good on the assists he was getting. So really like to see that. For Scanlon, I thought he looked good. Like you said, didn't really notice him in a good way. I did see him one time shove through a defender to create a lane that looked really good. It was a bigger guy, and he just drove him completely out of the way. So that was good to see. That was a complaint that you and I kind of had, that's what the lefty forwards are missing. So to see him even do it in one shift was good, that he's willing to go out there and do something like that. Like you said, I got the loose balls a few times. I'll let you handle the Bucky-Scanlon combo. Had that in my notes as well. But I thought he looked okay. And I think this offense is nearly impossible for a newcomer to break into. With the amount of stars on this team, you simply don't want the ball in your stick if you're Scanlon, because God forbid you make a mistake when there's, a Smith and a Byrne and MVPs galore on this team. Like, it's really difficult to call your own number and take it. He had 0 shots in the game. Like, as a new forward to this team, that is how I would feel as well. I wouldn't want to shoot the ball at all. I would take it. Somebody else take it. You guys are really, really good. I don't want to take the shot. You guys are better than I am. And I feel like it's really hard for a new forward to come in and really make a name for themselves on this team, because these guys, A, are amazing, and B, have been together for how many years now that they just know everybody's tendencies. So for what Scanlon was able to do in his limited time out there, I thought he did look good in the role that he played.
Yeah, I mean, this was a prototypical Buffalo Bandits type of offense. I mean, Ottawa scores first. You got Jacob Dunbar. I mean, he only had 2 points in this one, but yeah, not bad. But Ottawa scores first, like I mentioned. Then Buffalo scores 5 straight. Ottawa scores 1. Buffalo's right back to it. Ottawa scores 1. Buffalo scores 4 straight. Ottawa scores 1. Buffalo 2 straight. The biggest run Ottawa went on is between the third and fourth. They scored 3 straight, and then Buffalo ends it with 6 straight goals. So this was a team that it took them a while to get going. It's similar to what it was with Rochester. I mean, not even close, because it took them 1 goal the whole first quarter. But it took them 7 minutes in, a little bit more than 7 minutes in, to score their first goal, and then they kind of just went on a run. And they didn't really let Ottawa anywhere near, it was 5-2 at one point, 6-3 at one point. What was it? Probably the closest it got in the third quarter was 12-6. I mean, it was 12-7, 12-7, and the beginning of the fourth when Sundown scored on the power play. But after that, Buffalo did what they did against Rochester and just poured it on towards the end. They did not let their foot off the gas there. And I guess with the offense, I mean, it was goals from everybody, but it was all different type of goals as well. And I mean, the eighth goal, the one that you were mentioning. Bucky was battling against the boards. Scanlon was battling against the boards. It ends up popping out to Dane Smith, and he just bombs it, and it goes in, and it's 8-3. And it's one of those ones where you're two, not even smaller, but probably the smallest forwards that you got on your team are the ones battling it in, and they're doing their job. It goes back to this team's been to 4 straight finals. Each player and each role player knows their job. They do their job perfectly, and that's how you get a result of 18-7. And this is the same team that, yes, Toronto was hurting in week 1, but they had all their forwards there, and Ottawa's defense held them to 5 goals. Buffalo just put up 18 on a defense that looked vastly improved in week 1. And you had Zach Higgins, who got chased. So we did mention it on Thursday's episodes. Dunkerley was the backup. If for some reason Zach Higgins gets chased, that's what happened. And this offense they are rolling on all cylinders right now for a team that has had extra games for the last 4 years. There is not any wear and tear on these forwards groups' legs at all.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying to keep saying that this team looks like they're in midseason form, but there's no other way to describe this team right now. Is they're playing like it's the run up to the playoffs, and they need to just crush some teams, make playoffs, and continue that roll all the way through to a championship. Like, this is not what we're used to seeing from the Bandits. They usually start okay, but usually start a little bit slower. And these are two teams, like Rochester's a great team. A lot of people have them picked to not only make playoffs, but possibly make a championship. Ottawa, after their first game, was looking like, okay, this team's pretty legit. Defense looks good. Offense looks good. Has arguably one of the best players, if not the best player in the entire world on their team. And yet the Bandits come out and just crush them. And just the game wasn't close the entire, like at least the Rochester game, 7-6 going into the fourth, and that was closer. This one wasn't close the entire game. The offense just did whatever it wanted. Higgins made some ridiculous saves throughout the game. I kind of felt bad for him. It was probably flashbacks to him playing for Philly, where it was just a ton of shots, a ton of great plays. He made some really good saves. I don't think this game was on him. The Bandits offense just looked absolutely incredible, and I have an entire paragraph on McKay in my article, which I'll leave alone, but one of the things with this team and that championship mentality and that midseason mentality, the game was 17-7, and the Ottawa has the ball clamped in their crease, and the defender just kind of sitting there, waiting for the goalie to pick it up, waiting for himself to pick it up, which is kind of taking his time. McKay goes over. It's not illegal. He goes, scoops the ball out, fights him, gets the ball from him, gets it free, and then Nanticoke picks it up and scores. And it's that kind of championship mentality. Like, it's 17-7. McKay easily could have just walked away from that play. He could have just went to the bench, no harm. You're up by 10. It doesn't matter. That goal doesn't mean anything. But he's still playing that hard at that point in the game when the game's so far out of reach, and they end up getting another goal out of it. It's just that is where this team seems to be right now. They are just that dialed in. And honestly, I feel like they hate their upcoming schedule of a week off. I'm sure this team wants to keep rolling. I feel like they're probably upset with this bye week. I did watch the Dane and Josh show. They were upset that even week 1 they had a bye. They were hoping they could get things rolling. They didn't like sitting there, and now you have a few. I know they have 4 straight home games, but there's a lot of bye weeks mixed in coming up. I think the first one will be fine as a banner raising. They'll get up for that one. It'll be huge, but I feel like these bye weeks are just going to annoy a team that is rolling this hot right now.
Yeah, I believe when we went over the schedule, and it was a month and a half ago at this point,
yeah,
they had like 4 or 5 buys within the first half of the season, and then they just go on a long run
nothing.
of no buys. So, I mean, they mentioned it last year or the year before. I think it was Dane that mentioned it, where you want to go on runs. You want to go on game after game after game so you can build rhythm. You don't want to be doing a game here, off, game here, off. And I know a lot of it has to do with arena availability. I get that. but it definitely does stink. But what is nice is it's back-to-back games. You've put up 33 goals combined. You've allowed 14. It seems like the week off to start the season really didn't affect them. It shouldn't affect them having a week off here. And then going into the home opener, banner raising, like you mentioned, they're probably going to be able to get up for that one. Hopefully they maintain their composure because, I'm not saying it's the old Bandits, but, Bandits, they can get too hyped at some point. So I'm not super worried about that because we haven't really seen it under John Tavares, but it's something to monitor, and we'll deal with that in a week. But, yeah, we can transition to the defense. I noticed, and you asked me the question a week ago. Did you notice Whitty? And I went, not really, but it wasn't good or bad. I noticed him more in this one, and it was for the good. And it was the loose balls. He wasn't really battling. He didn't seem like he had that mean streak he had in week 1, which understandable because he was going against his former team. But it seemed like he was in the right position at all times. That goes along with pretty much the entire defense. I think the defense on top of it, whatever Steve Dietrich is doing with that defensive group, it's definitely working because they're also in, like, this whole team is in mid-season form. They're on, like, some kind of juice, that juice that they in Space Jam.
Yes.
Like when he's
I was going to say
drinking
flubber, and I was like, that's the wrong one.
Yeah, not flubber. But they're doing something special where it's only week 3, it's their game 2. And they're already playing like it's the lead up to the playoffs. They're unbelievable. And I noticed the biggest one that I noticed was I put it in my notes right away. It seemed like Nick Weiss was playing incredible. And then afterwards I'm doing my notes and I look, I'm like 1, 2, and 3, 12 loose balls, 1 caused turnovers. Yeah, he had a really good, like the numbers backed up what my eyes were seeing. And I've really liked his game yesterday because I watched it on Sunday. On Friday. The biggest thing to keep an eye on, and I don't expect any suspension, but he did get a game misconduct under 2 minutes at the very end of the game. I noticed it in the box score. I don't think I noticed it on screen. I don't think they mentioned it, but it is something to be aware of because he did get a 10-minute game misconduct with zeros on the clock, so he might be getting a call from the office, but it'll be. I highly doubt there's a suspension coming, but it's just something that I noticed in the box score that I did not notice on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, in the NLL.com box score, it has it at the end of the 3rd, not the end of the 4th.
Huh.
It has it, 2 minutes.
Oh, I
and
see it
10,
now. Yep.
Yeah,
you're right.
It's at the 3rd, not the 4th.
So never mind. Negate my under 5 minutes. I don't know why I thought that was the 4th.
You're sick. It's all right. You're going through it.
I wish I was not sick.
The biggest thing I've seen from the defense so far in these first 2 games, I mean, the caused turnovers and block shots in this game weren't there, which is interesting, but they still played really well, and the shots in general were down a lot that they were allowing. So because of that, there's a lot less block shots when you're keeping everything to the outside. But the biggest thing that I've seen from this team so far through 2 weeks is you held Connor Fields, you held Jeff Teat, 2 of the top 4 players in the league last year, to very limited production, and their counterparts, Dunbar, only had 2 goals, and Ryan Smith had 0 goals in the Rochester game. Like the top players, the top offensive players on the opposing teams, the Bandits have found a way to absolutely shut them down. And 2 of the top 4 in the entire NLL last year. It's not just a random player, a random team's top guy who might not be in the top 10 in the final scoring. Like these are 2 of the best players in the entire league, and the Bandits defense was able to contain both of them really, really well. And I think that's a huge part of what is going on with their team so far. And their defense looks really good. And if they can continue to lock down other teams' number 1s and force their depth scoring to score, you're going to see a lot more games like this. And to have 2 games so far with a 7 goals against average is wild.
Yeah, and even Dylan Robinson, remember before last season, I was like, okay, could he be that next transition player that we're looking for? Could he be that, alternative to the Ian McKay? And we saw that cause turnover. We saw the break. He's got wheels. That kid can fly. And yes, it didn't go in, but I mean, the defender was neck and neck with him. coming off the bench, and he just
was a good
pulled
shot
ahead of him. Yeah, it was a good shot too. I mean, that's what
just
I want to see.
Just a big save
more.
by Higgins.
I want to see more from Dylan Robinson, those type of goals. But I agree with you. Not very many in close chances, not a ton of secondary chances by this defense. And this is pretty much the same script as we saw versus Rochester in game 1. It's just this defense is giving Matt Vince the shots he wants to see. And I guess that's a good transition into goaltender because he's just making those big time saves again. This is not the Matt Vince that we saw in the beginning of last year. So I'm at the point where I'm saying it's not, last year was not because he didn't play in the summer. Last year was because of the defense in front of him. And that's really the only explanation, because now he's making the big time saves that we did not see in the beginning of last season. And I think it's because of the defense that was in front of him. We saw what happened when he came back from injury. We saw what happened when Paul Dawson came in. We saw what happened when the defense got healthy. It was vintage Matt Vince. We're seeing vintage Matt Vince to start this season. And it's a nice, pleasant thing to see that you don't really have to worry about your 42-year-old goaltender taking some time to warm up to the NLL game again.
Yeah, no, he looks great. I mean, there's really not much to say about him other than he's looked really, really good. And like you said, those big saves are coming and everything else. He's directing the defense really well. The defense has responded to him really well. There's really hasn't been too many big breakdowns so far. There were a couple in this game where the switch off, I don't know if transition was the right word, but the switch off, the change off between defenders got a little bit fuzzy. There was the one where I think it was Robinson fell down.
Yes.
Watching
on that turf. It was the same spot from week 1, though, where you mentioned about the turf. It was the exact same spot where Jeff Teat fell.
And it was just, I mean, that's just unfortunate, obviously. Yeah. And then, of course, the guy you're following in that moment is Teat, who just has an absolute laser. And if he gets that kind of look, he's going to score. But overall, I thought Vince played really well. The one thing about the defense that I'm going to go back to and ask you what your thoughts are on, Dawson and Priolo have looked fine. I've had no issues with either of them. But their over-aggressive nature seemed to be starting to come out again in this game, and they were really literally poking the bear in this one. They each got slashing penalties. What are your thoughts on them being just too aggressive in those situations, and do you think it's going to be something that gets toned down, that Tavares is like, hey, watch it, or do you like their intensity of just kind of beating people up after the play and mixing it up and causing some mayhem?
Priolo's, I didn't agree with the slashing call.
Agree. He completely whiffed.
Yeah, that one, I mean, that one was a bit confusing. Shockingly, and I guess that's why we've been doing this for close to 4 years now, we have this same mind. I was thinking that, I can't remember how it came into my head, but I was driving to the Niagara Falls house that we finished cleaning because it's being turned over to the next owner, different story, but in my head, I was like, yeah, it's easier to tone down players' aggression than it is to crank it up. And I believe it was Sean McDermott that was saying that a few years ago, where he was, hey, I would love to have players that are just too hyped up or too aggressive because it's easier to tone them back, to pump them up. So to me, I mean, game 2, I'm not really worried about it if it continues and whack my mic. First time, it's on my left now instead of my right. If it continues and develops a pattern of it, I'll be worried. But that was one of the main things that we talked about when Paul Dawson came out of the team was, hey, if he can and again, it's weird saying it now looking back on what he did last year, but if he can come in and be a depth role piece on this defense and can be smart by how he plays, he's a welcome addition to the team. But it would be his penalty minutes are in the 600s. That's the type of player we don't need and don't want. So, I mean, as long as they toe the line and they don't cross the line, I'm good with that physical, aggressive play style. Especially if it's in like the beginning of the game. If it's in the first and second quarter, you're going to wear down your opponents, and they're going to think twice before they go, okay, last time I was in front of the net here, I got lit up. I might not want to go there again. So as much as we say, hey, penalty minutes, they're not as, you don't want a ton of them, but there are some penalty minutes, even minors, that it's like, okay, that was worth it. That was a tone setter. That's going to make them think twice before coming in front of the net. So every once in a while, I know none of them. I mean, they're slashing, so it's definitely going to hurt. I'm not going to get slashed by Priel or Paul Dawson, but every once in a while, a penalty could be good for a team because it could have the opponents thinking twice before they go to a certain area on the field.
And speaking of passive, it was interesting to see Grennan not out there again.
I was also shocked, yeah.
Not sure if something's going on with him injury-wise or the team just hasn't found a spot for him yet. But especially in this kind of game where you know what the Bandits are, I expected him to be out there also mixing it up and trying to draw penalties with the aforementioned over-aggressive defense at times. But, yeah, defense, goaltending, offense, power play, special teams, just a full-on incredible game.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much more. I mean, like you would mention with the Grennan, I think the only reason he wasn't in this one is because after an 11-5 victory, you don't really want to mess with anything. So unless there is an injury, I don't see him coming back. But yeah, that was something that we mentioned on Thursday's show of, hey, he was that little pest that got in Buffalo's head last year. Could it be an interesting addition to the lineup? Could you pull out a Tager Clark like that and insert a Nathan Grennan, who's a different style, but he could have benefited them in some sort of way. I wasn't totally shocked, but I was a little shocked that he wasn't added to it. But yeah, a couple other ones. You already kind of mentioned it with Farrell. I thought he had a very good second quarter and bounced back from a rough first quarter. I think it was like 7-2 in faceoffs in the first quarter. It wasn't good. He was beaten clean pretty much every single time. And like you've mentioned, he does a great job. As much as we say faceoffs only matter when they do, we've both noticed that in the games he's played with Buffalo, he's done a great job at adjusting to what they do against him. And it seems like they can adjust to his adjustment. And when they do, it's just more about like clamping down and buying some time. The only other things, I hated that goal that happened. I'll say about this one first. Ashley Docking, sideline reporter for the NLL, covering the game Ottawa versus Buffalo. She said that there was a chance Bucky was going to go to Ottawa because it was his hometown, closer to home. It was a conversation, I guess. I guess it didn't go very far, but that was an interesting one. I thought it probably was going to be either Buffalo or, retirement. But hearing that Ottawa was on the table, it's not something that really popped in my brain. But good for him to score 2 goals in his hometown. That was nice.
He's already got 5 to start the season.
Right? Yeah, he's on a tear.
He looks great.
I don't think he's he could probably keep playing a few more years. Bucky, please play a few more years. We're gonna have to start this with Bucky this year as well, like with Man Vince last year. But the last one, I know it's the rule, and it's very, very rare that it happens, but. The Paul Dawson penalty, it shouldn't have been a penalty. Like,
what is the rule? I tried to listen to the announcers explain it, and I was going to go back because I still got confused even as they were trying to explain it. So if you know it, break it down.
I don't fully know it. I just know what they said. They said that if a penalty happens, even though a challenge is reversed, so like the penalty happened in a time that shouldn't have existed. Because that whole situation should have been worn out. Like, Ian McKay's goal stood. It was a good goal. So anything that happens afterwards shouldn't count.
I got
so,
you.
like, if that... That's still what I don't understand why it's a penalty. If McKay's goal counted, or they waved it off like they normally did, Ottawa goes down there, they score. But John Tavares, in that 30 seconds that you get the challenge, that you wrote the article, and then they reverse it, Ottawa's goal no longer counts because it shouldn't have counted because McKay's goal stood. So why does the penalty have to stand? Like, that's what doesn't make any sense. Like, if it's a major, I get it. But he literally got a penalty in a time frame that, according to the box score, didn't happen. Like, that's what doesn't make any sense to me, is that anything that happens after a goal is reversed should be wiped clean. And if this was an Ottawa reversal, I would be saying the same thing. It's not a Buffalo bias here. I think it's just a very stupid rule that is, even though it doesn't happen very often, it needs to be rewritten that if something happens in a time frame that, according to the box score, doesn't exist, it shouldn't exist. Like, his penalty happened in it's like Back to the Future. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand why it was I get it. It's a rule, but I don't get why it's a rule.
I do think it's exactly because of what you said at the end there for majors. Like, I think it would have to be for certain penalties and certain penalties. You have to, because, like, we'll say that, this isn't what happened. We'll say Dawson sees that everybody's pointing up. All the Bandits players are pointing up to challenge the play. He sees that they're pretty confident it went in, and he goes and just smashes somebody in the face because he's like, I'm not getting a penalty. This is going to be a goal. I'm all good. It's going to be wiped clean. So I think that's kind of the idea, that in that little bit of time frame, because you can't have somebody just up and demolish somebody else and not get penalized for it. I think if you did it your way, it'd have to be certain penalties wouldn't be called, whereas other ones, like you said, majors would have. You can't just punch someone in the face and be like, "Well, that time didn't exist, so I'm all good." I think that's kind of why they have to let it go, because if it doesn't get overturned, then that time frame still exists, and in that world, I think you're saying the goal would still, because it doesn't count, the penalty would still happen. If it does count, the penalty wouldn't happen. But I think it is probably, in theory, player safety, and we're probably overthinking it, and it's actually just a random rule that they wrote. But in my eyes, I'll call it for player safety, just to make it make sense.
That's fair. It kind of reminds me of like when we're playing 3-on-3 Chell, and somebody gets a penalty, and you just dive all over the ice just to
exactly
trip the players. Yeah, that's what they don't want. And that's what I think the rule was written for. I think it's just a bad rule. But a lot of milestones happened in this one, Phil. Before we get into it, though, let's go over our first sponsor of the show, Tap That Tap Room.
Tap That Tap Room is at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar featuring 30 consistently rotating taps. They offer a variety of beers, ciders, sours, seltzers, and malt beverages.
Now, Phil, we've kind of briefly talked about it this season, but we haven't really talked about it as much detail as we did last season, and it's because there's only been one of them so far. They didn't have one on Friday, but they are hands down, and I'm not just saying this because they are a sponsor on this show. I'm saying this because we were there firsthand and experienced it. They are the best place in Western. They are the best place in the country and North America to watch the Buffalo Bandits when they're on the road. Or even if you don't have tickets and it's a home game, go there to watch it. Because what other place besides like, hey, you guys want to come over and watch the Buffalo Bandits, that have the sound on, that you can actually listen to what's going on there? There's so many times where you can go to a bar and you want to actually listen to what's going on the screen. Like, hey, why was the flag call there? And then you got to realize, okay, now I got to watch what the umpire is saying. No, at Tap That Tap Room, every single TV there is not only showing the Bandits game, but it has the sound on. And it's not like overly loud. It's not like you're at a rave or like a nightclub or anything like that. You can still talk and communicate next to each other, but you're actually able to hear the game. So what better place is there in North America? Tell me if I'm wrong, Phil, that you can go and watch this game. It's a known thing around Western New York that Tap That Tap Room is the place to go. So it's not like you're just getting random strangers in, hey, can you turn on like this baseball game? No, it's Bandits night when the Bandits play. They give out tickets. I believe there's something going around right now that they're giving out tickets to the championship. Or
I will
the banner raising.
Explain that in just a moment.
Perfect. Yeah, I will let you take this away then, because like I said, if you do not have tickets and you're not with the traveling party of Banditland, go to Tap That Tap Room to watch the games, because you will not be let down.
Yeah, and you can go to their Facebook. They are offering 2 tickets for the home opener. If you don't have tickets yet, you just have to like, tag, and follow the post. The winner is going to be chosen on December 23rd, contacted directly via DMs. And you can win 2 free tickets to the home opener, which does not have a lot of tickets left available, if any. So go there, do all the things you got to for that post, enter to win 2 free tickets to the home opener.
And it's free. You don't have to do anything.
You don't have to pay
2 free tickets. It's unbelievable.
Banner raising.
Yeah, and you get a free banner. Everybody in attendance gets a free banner. So you make out even better because you get to go home with a championship banner. But for any other posted event, check out go to their Facebook page. And for what's on tap and what's on deck, go to tapthattaproom.com. Phil, a lot of milestones happened. I'm glad NL.com and ESPN.com and Pat Gregoire and everybody announcing actually mentioned some of these ones. It's catching on. I love it. I'm patting myself on the back because I started this. I didn't really start it. I get it. Josh Byrne crossed 500 career points. He had 10. He needed 8. He's at 502. Dane Smith, 5 points from 1,100. He got 9. He's at 1,104. Paul Dawson did tie Josh Sanderson for 8th in games played in NLL history. Chris Cloutier did pass Sean Williams. I'm sorry, he tied him, right? Because he only had 3 points. Let me review this.
Yes, 3-0.
3-0. So he tied him for career points for the Buffalo Bandits. He's in 10th. And then Ian McKay, finally, thank you. He passed Micah Kersey for 10th place in Buffalo Bandits history. So we checked off 5 more on the list. There's a couple more that I mentioned on the Thursday show that are real close. So hopefully when they face the next game on their schedule, the banner raising, I'll be able to check these ones off. Steve Priolo, though, no cost turnovers in 2 games. Kind of shocking for a guy that's got over 200 for his career. Kind of shocking he has 0 on the season so far.
Also Buchanan with only 3 loose balls on the season so far. He's the loose ball king.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Chris Cloutier got 10 of them in game 1, where he didn't leave any extras. But NLL Outlook, some nice games. I went 6-1 in picking.
I got to stop choosing fake upsets that don't actually pan out at all.
I picked the upsets that did happen, I guess. Sort of.
I was going to follow exactly all of your picks again, and I was like, that's boring. And then the 2 that I thought could have been upsets were not upsets. And I didn't really expect them to be upsets, but I wanted to choose differently, and here we are.
It bit you. The only one I got wrong went to overtime. And we'll go over that one in a second. But the first one I got right was Vancouver over Rochester. Vancouver 10-7. Rochester was up 4-2 at halftime. Vancouver would score 6 in the third. Held Rochester scoreless for the final 18-18. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, because Buffalo just did it to Rochester in game 1. Vancouver, Charlotte Beatties coming out slow this year. I mean, I don't really know what's up with him. 2 assists on 11 shots. Grant, again, he's going to make his name for Transition Player of the Year. He's got 4 goals already, 1 assist, 2 points. Peshko, 2-1-3. He's a nice young player. Lady, one of those players last year they made the all-rookie team, 2 assists, 7 loose balls, 1 cost turnover. Ball, 3 goals on 11 shots. Walsh, 42 of 49. I think he's the main story of the season so far for Vancouver. He's played very nicely. It's going to come down to goal scoring for Vancouver this year, but they held Connor Fields scoreless on 11 shots. Lanchbury, 3-1-4. He's really the only forward that had a super good game. Smith, 3 goals on 9 shots. Hutchcraft played really, really well. 46 of 55 saves. He was not the reason they lost this one. It was because the offense dried out. Colorado versus San Diego. Another one I got right. San Diego, 14-11 victory. 7 goals in the second by San Diego. That's the 3rd straight game. San Diego's gone absolutely nuts in the second. The old guys that people always said that, hey, it's not 2016. Hellier, 2-3-5. Berg, 4-3-7. Benesh had 3 assists. Jackson, first game back for that left side, 3-1-4. Courier, 2-2-4. McIntosh, 3 assists. O'Rig still not looking completely right, but better than he has the last 2 games. He's improving each week, 32 of 43 saves. This was Colorado's worst outing so far. And their second half explosion didn't really happen. Malcolm did get on the scoreboard, though, 2-2-4. You had McLaughlin 1-3-4. Kelly 2-2-4. Williams 2-2-4. Pretty much the whole team went 2-2-4. Ward 37 of 49. The battles of the winless. Philly gets the win 19-10. Their offense goes absolutely bananas. Reardon 4-2-6. Rezateris 3-8-11. Catoni 1-9-10, Jones 3-5-8, O'Neill 4-1-5, Damoud 47 of 51 saves. Sorry, talking too long. Las Vegas, their team. This needed to be a season where they took the next step for Sean Williams. They're down at 0-3 now. Kells did not play very well, 33 of 51 saves. Las Vegas has to get rolling. 0-3 is not the start. That I don't think anybody really picked them to be a contender for the playoffs, but I think a lot of people picked them to be a team that took the next step this year, and it just hasn't happened. This was the game I did get wrong, though. Calgary took it in overtime, absolutely insane by Doby. Ties it at 12 with 49 seconds left, and wins it 50 seconds into overtime. The man had 8 goals, Phil. 8 fastest goals, unbelievable. Cook 2, 3, and 5. Dixon 2, 4, and 6. King 7 assists. Pace in his first game back after signing the 1-year deal, 5 assists. McLeod 47 of 52 saves. Bowman came in for 9 minutes, 4 of 5. Albany though, I'm really dying over here, Phil. Simmons, no goals, 6 assists. Williams, 2, 1, and 3. Walker, 3, 3, and 6. Albany drops to 1 and 2 on the season. I don't think anybody saw that one coming. And then we got 2 more to go over real quick. Georgia gets by Toronto, 10-9. Lyle scores game-winning goal with, that says 1 second left on the clock, but I don't believe that's true, Phil. I think it was 1 minute left on the clock. 1 minute left on the clock. Sorry, again, notes. Real bad. Q 3, 3, and 6. Jackson 1, 1, and 2. Oaks only had 1 goal. He usually, when Georgia wins, Seth Oaks usually has multiple goals. Only having 1 goal was a bit shocking. Dobson's season continues to be electric. 46 to 55 saves. And then Toronto drops to 0 and 3. Matthews just disappearing act all season. I don't think he has a single goal, 3 assists on this one. He's a player that needs to step up in these type of games, and he just hasn't done it through 3 games yet. It's kind of disappointing for him. Bushi, 3 goals on 14 shots. Rose, 35 of 45 saves. And then the last one here, overtime, Saskatchewan once again. 2 straight games winning it in overtime. Halifax actually led 8-3 with 12:50 to go, and Saskatchewan would score 6 straight, including the overtime winner by Zach Mans, who finished with 6 goals. You had Hosek on this team, who is paying dividends for the defense. 1 assist, 10 loose balls, 4 caused turnovers. Chiliano, once again, 39 of 47 saves, just electric. And then you had Dawson Theed for Halifax. 4, 2, and 6. You know how much I love him. But 10 turnovers. That just can't happen. Saskatchewan walks out 2-0 on the young season.
Yeah, you went over everything. Blitzing some things. Let's see. Rochester Fields is off to a pretty slow start. I mean, he had that incredible first game, and then the last 2 games he has been really held in check. That's not what you need from your all-star players. You need them to get it going. And, I mean, only scoring 7 goals will do that in 2 straight games. But Rochester doing what they did last year and have done for a couple of years now, being very streaky, having a great game, and then kind of putting up 2 duds. We'll see if they can bounce back. San Diego, Colorado. I think Colorado, like you mentioned, their offense not really coming through at all in this game. I think it's a testament to San Diego's defense. Even O'Rig, 32 of 43 is not great. Only 43 shots by Colorado's offense. That is interesting in such a low-scoring game. Damu did okay. In the next game against Philly and Las Vegas, like you said, Vegas needs to really pick it up if they want to go anywhere. But Kell's struggling. Damu did great for Philly. Don't like that they have him, but big 19-goal win for them. Calgary, a very shocking 2-0. I don't really know what to do with this team. They are scoring a ton. Like you said, Dobie with his ridiculous, I think it was, 8 or 7 straight? Was it 7 straight in...
I'll look that up right now.
It was 8 or 7 straight, all by him. Just insane to do that, to come all the way back and win that game. I think Albany might have thought they had that one in the bag a little bit too early. I don't know what to make of Calgary yet. I mean, they're beating some pretty interesting... I mean, the first game really wasn't that great of a win, but beating Albany is pretty big for that team, so they're going to be possibly more interesting than we think. You got...
Yes, I do have it. He scored all 8 goals, all in a row for his own team. He had 3 mixed in with Albany, but all 8 goals in less than 15 minutes.
That's what I thought. That is wild. Georgia
He's on pace, real quick, he's on pace for 117 goals.
Yikes. Yeah, so good pickup by Calgary. I still don't really trust their team as a whole, but so far they're off to a surprising 2-0 start. Toronto's defense and Rose are still really, really good, but Georgia, this is still my complaint with that team. They win really low-scoring games. I don't want their offense to do anything. But I think their team needs their offense to start scoring more than 9, 10, 11 goals. Like, I don't know. They need to just start going closer to the 11, 12, 13, 14. Again, Toronto's defense is very good. Rose is very good. So it is what it is against a tough defense. But Georgia's offense needs to start picking it up a little bit. And then Saskatchewan, not a surprise 2-0, but a surprise victory in the way they were able to win against Halifax. I thought they would have been able to take care of business in that game a little bit easier, especially being down 8-3 with 12:50 to go. Thought they just would have been a little bit more dominant in that game. Another team that's oddly, I mean, this is what the NLL is, right? Like Halifax coming into the season, we didn't really have high hopes for them. I know they're 0-2, but still, they've had some pretty okay games so far. And then Calgary, also at the bottom of our, finishing predictions, and they're 2-0 right now. So that's just how the NLL is. It's wild and kind of all over the place, but we'll see how, it's way too early to see how anything's going to pan out, but Toronto 0-3 is massive. That is going to be a really, really tough battle for them to climb out of to make playoffs. I know, again, still really, really early. Cannot count them out by any means if they get healthy and go on a massive run. I think they still have all the time in the world to do that, but putting themselves in 0-3 hole early is not good. And then even Albany losing a couple early is huge for the Bandits. I think that's really big for them to kind of push themselves further apart from the top.
Dayton Smith on pace for 45 goals, 135 assists, and 180 points.
I mean, it's not even that good, No, it's just it's pretty much an average season.
Not even over 50 goals.
That's seen better. What was that?
On our next show, there will be no Bandits games, but there are 4 games on the docket for the NLL, and we'll have some fun Christmas and holiday games for you to cover the bye week, because just because they go on bye doesn't mean we get to. Darn, I could use a bye week, Phil. Can I go on bye, please?
No.
Okay. We'll move forward then. The Buffalo Bills. This time they put up over 40 points. Josh Allen, unbelievable once again, and this time they come out victorious, even though they tried hard not to. This game was fun just as a football fan. 90 points combined. Team Dome, 2 weeks in a row, Phil. I'm just saying, yes, they put up 35 points in that winter wonderland, but I told you I didn't have fun watching it these last 2 weeks. I had fun watching both of them, and what's the difference? Both of them were in domes. Yeah, Team Dome. But Josh Allen, just unbelievable. If he doesn't win MVP, he could just sit out the last 3 games. I still think he should win MVP. 362 yards, 2 touchdowns. He only ran for, 68 yards and 2 more touchdowns. James Cook was electric in this one. Ty Johnson had, 98 yards or 95 yards in the first quarter. He finished with 114. Somehow doesn't find the end zone. But this offense is absolutely legit. And we were talking about last week how they dropped it against the Rams and how they possibly could have kissed the number 1 seed away because the Detroit game was the one that we were most worried about. You just flip-flop them, and they pretty much did 1-1, exactly what you were anticipating them to do. The biggest thing, and they do have an excuse this week because their entire secondary besides Christian Benford was hurt. This defense is scaring me, man. This defense is definitely scaring me. Back-to-back weeks over 40 points. Yes, the secondary was very injured. But, man, Jared Goff almost throws for 500 yards on you. The run game was unbelievable, but I think it's because the offense got out to such a big lead, it had to change what the Detroit Lions did. So I'll give the offense all the credit in the world because they did exactly what they needed to do to help a injured defense. Is they get out early so Detroit just couldn't run it the nonstop. They ran 15 times for 48 yards and 1 touchdown. The long was 13 yards by Gibbs. Now Gibbs had a really good receiving game, 5 for 83 and 1. But what is Detroit known for? They get up early and then they just run it down your throats. They couldn't do it in this one, and I think that's a big, big reason why Buffalo came out on top, even with giving up 42 points.
Yeah, it's cliche, but I was thinking that the best defense sometimes is your offense, and exactly what you said, going up 14-0 early immediately took the Lions out of the game that they like to play, forced them to throw, and yes, Goff did really, really well throwing. He had an insane game of almost 500 yards.
Thank you, Amon-Ra St. Brown, man. Thank you. I have a legit chance at an upset in fantasy.
I do not, and we'll get to another player you told me to play in a moment. It didn't matter anyway. But Yeah, I mean, this game was weird. I mean, I don't know. You want to blame it all on injury, that's fine, and a lot of it is injury related, but this defense needs to flip it real quick. If they go into playoffs like this, yes, Allen and the offense and Brady called one heck of a game. I know a lot of it is on Allen, but
one mistake.
What was that?
Not doing the quarterback sneak. Just right at the end there. And it ended up being the missed Bass field goal right at the end of the first half. Just sneak it, man. It doesn't get old. We don't we don't hate seeing it. Just do it.
Right. Other than that, he called an absolutely incredible game. The fourth down calls he was making, the run calls, he was incredible. The Josh Allen execution of everything was great. Like you said, run game for one of the league's best run defenses was mind-blowing. To see them run as well as they did against a team that you're not supposed to be able to run on was really impressive. And to see them not really overload anyone on rushing either. I mean, Davis came in for some of those short yardage plays, did what he needed to do. Cook had that. He's the lead, so you're not going to say change of pace because he's the guy, but he looked really good in his opportunities, but didn't get a ton. I mean, he only had 14 carries. That's not 20 to 25 to 30. So they limited him-ish, but he still looked really, really good in his chances. But overall, the team looked good. Allen looks amazing. The offense looks unstoppable right now if they keep playing like this, but the defense is very scary. We'll see what happens if they get healthy. And, they have some tune-up games that they can't really take as tune-up games. They need to keep winning. But they do have some ability to get healthy over the next few weeks, tune up, and then roll into playoffs. But they I don't know. They need to do something. The defensive line seemed great. Oliver was amazing with his QB pressures that were through the roof. I believe it was his second highest ever in his career for QB pressures in a single game. He looked really, really good. And again, the defensive line had a lot of pressure, had a couple sacks. They looked good. It was really just the secondary that looked awful. Really bad in a lot of situations, but it was a game where Goff ended up throwing not only the yards, but he threw almost 60 times. So when you have a battered secondary and they're throwing 60 times, it's kind of a what do you expect from this team. But on the offense, I'm very confused about the player that you told me to play. And he was a complete non-factor in a game where they put up 48 points. That is Amari Cooper. I just don't get it. It's fine. They scored 48 points. They obviously didn't need him, but where is he? Like, in a game where you score 48 points, how is he not getting a single catch or making a single target? Like, how is he not making any kind of impact? I don't know if they're hiding him for playoffs and they'll unleash him then. He seems healthy, seems fine. He was out there occasionally, but I don't get it. In a team where you're looking for an alpha to step up, I'm not saying he's, young Amari Cooper who's going to be a true dynamic number one wide receiver, but not to have a single target in a game where you put up 48 points and last week he had 14 targets. I don't get why'd you bring him here? It's just confusing. I don't really care. Again, they scored at will and did amazing on offense, so they didn't need him. It's just interesting to see him not part of the game plan at all. 0 targets is just wild for a guy that you brought in to hopefully lead your wide receiver room, and he's not doing anything since he really came here.
Yeah, this was a weird game for the receivers. Keon Coleman 1 for 64 on 2 targets. You had Dalton Kincaid, first game back, 4 for 53 with 7. That one makes more sense. Shakir 6 for 39, touchdown, 7 targets. That makes sense. But then you got Ty Johnson 5 for 114 on 5 targets. You got Dawson Knox, who made a great catch, 2 for 42 on 3 targets. It's the wide receivers again. And this team, I'm not complaining because they put up 48 points. This offense looks amazing, and they didn't need Amari Cooper. My biggest thing is I wonder if he's just nursing something. The snap counts are not out that I can find yet. So I wonder how many snaps he actually ran and how many routes he actually ran. I wonder if it's just more about them although they really wanted this game. You needed this win just to keep pace with Kansas City, give yourself any slim chance. But I wonder
even
if
the
it's
second
just more
seed.
about,
Steelers are still on your tail. I know they lost,
I wonder
but
if this
still.
is just them limiting his workload so come playoffs he's fully healthy. But it does benefit
0
him.
targets is weird.
That one is the weird part. It's that he wasn't even targeted in a game where you put up 48 points. That's what's not concerning, but a little bit like not even a red flag. It's just more like what happened? Like you ran 68 plays. How was he not even looked at once? That's the biggest confusing part to me.
Yeah, agreed. And again, maybe they're hiding things for playoffs. I don't know. I mean, again, like you said, you needed this win, so seems like a weird time to pull something like that. We'll see if he is slightly injured. But again, 14 targets last week. How do you go from 14 to 0? Like what? His usage is just all over. I know last week they didn't have Kincaid, they didn't have Coleman, so things were going to get spread around a little bit more. But Kincaid and Coleman combined for 9 targets. That's not 14. I mean, for him to get 0, you said Ty Johnson takes a lot of those targets. Ray Davis had 2, Cook had 1, so the running backs combined for 8. You put in Coleman's and Kincaid's, that's pretty much all of Cooper's targets from last week, but still just weird not to have him in any play the entire game where you put up 48 points. Just strange more than anything. Like you said, not a bad thing because they scored 48 points, but for a guy who was supposed to come over and hopefully make an impact on this offense, just where is he?
So next game, 1 o'clock. Thank you. Love those 1 o'clock games. Versus New England. This is a late
recording.
Yeah, they got New England, Jets, and New England to finish off the regular season before they look forward to playoffs. Seeding is still out for determination. But this one will be the quickest segment in the history of the world. Sabres, 3 straight losses. Wednesday, 3-2 versus the Rangers. Power, Tage, goal scorers, UPL, 25-27 saves. Shots 31-28 in favor of Buffalo, 1 for 4 on the power play. That was their 8th straight loss. Saturday, lost 4-2 versus Washington. Zucker, Cooley, goal scorers, UPL 27-30 saves. Shots 31-21 in favor of Washington, 0 for 2 on the power play. 9th straight loss. Sunday, just finished 5-3 loss versus Toronto. Quinn beat a goalie twice, man. He's back, baby. Tuck was the other goal scorer. Levi 36-40 saves, shots 41-27 in favor of Toronto, 1 for 2 on the power play, and they reached the golden nugget of 10 straight losses. What did I say on the last show? As these losses pile up, the pressure continues because you need to break the losing streak. Didn't happen. They reached double digits. This is getting to the point of firing Ralph Krueger, where he went on, 12 games in a row the team did, and they fired him on like the 9th straight loss. This is 10 straight in a row. I don't know. Don't care. Sabres stink. Let's go home.
Basically, yeah. I mean, UPL still performing pretty well. Good for him. I feel bad that he signed a contract here. Hopefully he gets traded for his own sake. Go to a team that cares and wants to win ever at all. New ownership? I don't know. Like what could save it for you at this point? Like, realistically, I mean, we're not buying back in this season unless they have some mega run. It's highly unlikely at this point you're buying back in this season. But for you to feel anything, any emotion toward the Sabres at all, I assume right now we're both dead inside and just feel nothing. No anger, no anything. If they fired Adams, if they fired Lindy, if they sold the team, like what needs to happen for you to feel literally anything? Like, okay, at least they did something. Like where are you at in just steps you want them to take?
It's a good question.
Because right now I don't really care, but like what would get you to care?
I've actually at the point where I've warned, not even the organization, because who are we? Who cares? But this is kind of what I've been saying since we started covering the team is if your fans are ticked off, that should be a good sign to you because they mean they still care. I don't care anymore. Like, I'm at the point where this team is a dumpster fire. There's nothing to care about. Like, they don't care. Why should I care? I know I've said this multiple times and then I go on a rant. There's no rant to follow this. I don't care. Like, I read the stats because we have to. I don't want to talk about this team. They stink. They don't care. The franchise is a joke. I don't think Pagula even knows he owns a hockey team anymore. We always joke that he doesn't know he owns a lacrosse team. Definitely doesn't. If he knows, how can you see... Yeah, it's pathetic. They're still sitting with $8 million worth of cap space. They haven't done a single thing. Last year we made the joke about them making that trade for, who was it? Eric Robinson, I think it was, where he was like that waiver guy from Washington, and they made a trade, and we're like, oh man, good job. I would kill for that right now. Like, something. Prove that you care about something. Like, the biggest move was they sent down Ryan Johnson for Devin Levi, who's been killing it down in Rochester. I don't care. It's just, they stink. They could sell the team at this point. I don't care. Like, there's nothing to care about. Like, I'm going to probably say the same thing. They go on a 3-game winning streak. You're not going to buy me back in. Like, You're going to have to get in a playoff spot for me to get any type of emotion, good or bad, again. Like, this is just going to be, I'm sorry if you listen to this for the Sabres segments. You might have to go somewhere else. There's nothing that's going to come from me. Maybe Phil can spice it up with some, maybe we'll come up with some fun game. Like, we'll use this rest of this week to come up with some fun game to keep us entertained about the Sabres that, I don't know. Maybe we'll make a bingo card and like we'll check, see who can get bingo first.
I like that.
Maybe we'll do that. We'll come up with a bingo game or some sort of game to try to entertain us through the Sabres. And instead of talking about the team, we'll see who can get bingo first.
Yeah, I do think it'd be interesting if they sold. I don't think they will ever sell the team, but I think that would be like the one thing that would make me semi-interested to hear someone who cares about the Sabres talk about the Sabres, and maybe just cares about hockey in general, wants to see the Sabres go back to what they were, fires everybody. I'd like to see the team moved and then a expansion team brought in for the Sabres. Just move the whole team somewhere else, and then we'll take the expansion team, start fresh. I want new players, new coaches, new GM, new owner. Let the Sabres be an expansion, like Rochester did in the NLL, right? Halifax took them, they shipped off the whole team, and then Rochester, who already existed, became the expansion team. That's what I want for the Sabres. Just give me expansion Buffalo Sabres.
One flaw in that,
Dang
Regula owns Rochester Nighthawks.
I thought didn't he sell them? Or was he?
Not yet.
There were rumors.
He has not sold them yet. Rumors, but he has not sold them yet.
But yeah, that's all I want. That's about it. Other than
Very
that,
fair.
Yeah, it's very hard to care about this team or any of the players on it. And
Okay.
I feel bad for the players on it who do care and are trying to win.
Fair enough. We can end it on this sour tone. But Bandits, 2-0,
Bandits.
going into the bye.
The true owners of the
KeyBank
KeyBank Center will be back very soon.
They'll be sending the rent due to the Buffalo Sabres for allowing them to keep using their home. So, Phil, anything else with this episode before we shut it down for the bye week of the Buffalo Bandits?
Go Bills, go Bandits, go teams.
Fair enough. On our next show, we'll kind of talk about Buffalo, AFC standings again, look ahead to the final 3 games of the regular season. Well, maybe I'll be happy because I advanced in fantasy football. It's getting a lot closer. JSN, stop catching passes, please. Sabres, they'll probably still have a segment here, and then we'll come up with a fun game for them and move forward. And then we'll go over the NLL around there and then have some type of holiday fun game for the next 2 shows to cover the Bandits bye week. So that will end this episode. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky, Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Check out our store on our link tree on our socials or on the shop tab at the top of the website. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.